ready to get started. I want to welcome you tonight to a public information forum, which is being held in the place of the regularly scheduled meeting of the Hazardous Waste Management Commission, who decided to cancel. In lieu of that, we're going to hold this meeting to try and disseminate information. It may be one-sided, but the Hazardous Waste Management Commission was invited to come tonight and they declined to appear. We want to thank the school system of Granville County for providing this facility and for all the help they've been in helping have public meetings so that people can learn about this issue. We have a set of very good speakers tonight. We have Dr. Mark Guerrero, who is from Caldwell County, who has firsthand experience in treating victims of hazardous waste incinerators. We have Roy Gorman, who is a biologist who also has experience with the effects of incineration on plants and vegetation. We have Joanne Allman from Scotch in Stanley County, who is currently in the process of fighting Carolina Solite, which is another facility in the state which is burning hazardous waste. We have Denise Lee from Anson County, who has fought previous facilities and is also helping to fight the Carolina Solite facility. And we have Matt Petrovic, who is a Granville County resident who has worked for the EPA and their health effects laboratory at UNC and has good information about the health effects of incineration. While I'm at it, I want to recognize guests that are here tonight. Representative Jimmy Crawford is here, Representative John Church is here, and Representative Green is here as well tonight. We want to thank you for coming. In addition to these guests, we also have Dick and Addie Baker here tonight from South Carolina. They have firsthand experience in living under the cloud of incineration, and if you want to talk to them, they can tell you what their experiences have been. And we want to thank them for coming tonight and taking their time to show that they are interested also in what happens to us, and we want them to understand that we are interested in what happens to them. In addition to that, we have Dave McNaught and Tom Stroud from the Tar River Pamlico Sound Foundation. They're here as well tonight. They're tremendously interested in this issue because of the potential impact that it will have on the Tar River and its watershed and all of the municipalities which take their water from the Tar River, as well as the sound itself. And in addition to the speaker from Caldwell County, we also have a resident from Caldwell County who is here. So we want to give all these folks a hand and thank them for coming tonight. By way of information, the meeting tonight is being sponsored by GROW, the Granville Residents Opposed to Waste. We have sponsored this meeting because we believe that it is in the public's best interest to have as much information as possible in learning about what is going to be for someone a 20 to 30 year burden, which we don't think that anyone should bear. News about activities that our organization is planning in addition to this meeting tonight. On Saturday in Oxford, we are going to have two events, one of which is a street fair, which is going to start at 7 a.m. in the morning and culminate with a dance at the Armory, which will end by midnight. In addition to that, at 10 a.m. we are planning a march, the theme of which is a march to reclaim our future. We are planning to march from the Oak Plaza Shopping Center to the site, the proposed site for the incinerator. And we hope that everybody will turn out and show that they are interested in preserving and taking back what the state and Thermal Chem want to take from us, and that is our health and our future. One piece of news that I wanted to share with you. As you're aware, Thermochem is planning on coming into the county on the 9th of July and also in August to hold public hearings for a permit for a site which has not been selected yet. It is my opinion personally and opinion of a lot of other folks that it is premature for Thermochem to come into town in July. Since they don't have a site, then we really don't see the benefit of having hearings until a site's been selected. I don't know how you folks feel about that. Do you feel that Thermochem should come to town in July? No. That's what I thought. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and start with our speakers. The first speaker tonight, which we are very honored to have with us, who does not normally speak to public gatherings from what I understand, is Dr. Mark Guerrero. He is going to share with you his experiences with the Caldwell incinerator and its effects on the residents of Caldwell County. If you would please welcome Dr. Mark Guerrero.
I appreciate your kind invitation. I also appreciate the kind invitation of Dr. Taylor and Dr. Coinas. Ironic, isn't it, that as the state closes the hazardous waste incinerator in Caldwell County, they're lying in wait as another innocent community. Last week in Iredell County, the Governor's Waste Management Commission agreed that for there to be a safe hazardous waste incinerator in the state of North Carolina, we need appropriate state regulatory agencies to watchdog the facility. I'm going to change positions. Excuse me. Let me repeat that last statement because I think it's a pivotal statement that you all need to remember. Last week in Iredell County, the Governor's Waste Management Commission agreed that for there to be a safe hazardous waste incinerator in the state of North Carolina, we need appropriate state regulatory agencies to watchdog such a facility. I wonder if Mr. Hinnant and the members of the Governor's Waste Management Commission realized at that time that Caldwell County was in the process of suing the state regulatory agencies for not doing their job in Caldwell County for 10 years, for not protecting the citizens of Caldwell County for 10 years. I see before me a number of empty seats. This is usual protocol for the state bureaucracies and for folks that are supposed to be well informed. We're used to speaking to empty chairs in Caldwell County. We're tired of it. You need to be aware of it, and you need to have them start listening. I wanted to deal with some issues of concern that were generated in Caldwell County over the last 10 years. The first issue is contaminated soil and contaminated water. The second issue was the possibility of fire at the incinerator. The third issue was the possibility of explosion. The fourth issue was the possibility of residential illness. The fifth issue was the possibility of occupational illness. For the past years, state officials provided ridiculous excuses to us, trying to explain away the presence of contaminated soil and water on the Hass Dairy Farm and surrounding areas. Initially, they told us it was unnecessary to test these soils. They stated it was too expensive and a waste of money. The Concerned Citizens Group in Caldwell County raised money by themselves to do appropriate testing. Subsequent EPA testings have confirmed significant contamination of the surrounding facility that precipitated the condemnation of the commercial dairy farm adjoining the facility. And according to classified EPA documents that were released in November of 1989, soil gas samples, which means gas emanating from the contaminated soil, showed contamination in concentration well in excess of OSHA work limits, and therefore well in excess of population exposure limits. It goes on to state that these data emphasize a widespread and varied nature of contamination. And they summarize. To summarize, the study has shown the presence of contaminants from a number of classes, both chemical and toxins, carcinogens, liver and kidney poisons. Some of these contaminants are already present in the water in concentrations exceeding drinking water standards. In time, additional contaminants identified in soil may also migrate to the groundwater. Approximately 30% of residents within a 5-mile radius of the site depend upon groundwater as a water supply. According to the EPA document, because soils became more contaminated with depth at certain locations, digging was actually terminated for health and safety consideration of the workers employed by the EPA. What does this imply for my patients that lived right next door to the facility? Furthermore, the state would not even test the soil had the concerned citizens of Caldwell County not spent the time and money to do this testing on their own. Furthermore, after the contamination was found, state officials accused Mr. Hass of contaminating his own soil. Subsequently, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, along with the EPA, are presently coordinating a thorough and intensive biological survey of the facility and surrounding areas. It's amazing to me that 4 years ago, I heard state officials say, "Don't worry, there's nothing wrong. And by the way, it's too expensive to test it anyways." The EPA was in town 2 weeks ago. They're thoroughly examining the contaminated site. It all goes back to the state's ideal of if we can see no problem, there is no problem, so we'll close our eyes. Issue number 2. We were concerned about the possibility of a fire at the facility due to mishandling of combustible, ignitable, and explosive wastes, as described by the workers. The state ignored our concern, and in September of 1989, a fire broke out at the facility, forcing the evacuation of 200 residents, precipitating over 50 emergency room visits. A patient of mine spent 10 days in the hospital coughing up soot and blood as a result of the inhalation injury. He continues to be treated for his pulmonary problems and inhalation injury. Issue number 3, explosion. We were concerned about the possibility of explosion due to inappropriate handling of ignitable and explosive chemicals. An explosion subsequently took place at the facility, which was strong enough to do damage to residential buildings half a mile away. The state suggested that this was an act of God. I wonder whose God the state is stating. My God is a merciful God. Issue number 4, residential illnesses. We know that incomplete combustion of chlorinated materials, as exemplified by flame or smoke, can produce phosgene or chloride vapors. Keep in mind that the specs on the incinerator at CSI allowed a maximum feed rate of 1,800 pounds per hour. Yet the DEM Air Quality Division permitted the facility to run at 4,000 pounds per hour, and the workers were paid on a production basis. Think about that. How long it took us to get those facts. The company protected it, the state protected those facts. It took an act of God for us to get those facts. The North Carolina Biological Monitoring Unit, headed by Mr. Roy Gorman, who you've already met tonight, documents severe and extensive vegetative damage due to chlorine emissions from CSI. The state ignored their own documents. In June and July of 1987, the Biological Monitoring Unit, headed by Mr. Gorman, performed a passive collection study which measured and predicted chlorine concentrations. The state permit allowed 4 pounds per hour of chlorine emissions. The air quality model showed an average of 36 pounds of chlorine emissions per hour and a peak of 72 pounds of chlorine emissions per hour. Not only were these documents ignored by the state, but unknown officials altered the reports. Many Mount Hermon residents simultaneous to this complained of eye burning, nasal burning, respiratory symptoms. After seeing myself and occupational medicine experts at Duke, these residents were suggested to wear acid mist respirators in their homes, in their yards, and in fact, they experienced great relief. State officials actually ignored this and laughed at us. They stated to me, "Mark, unless you can document that there are emissions in the air, chlorine in the air, it means nothing." And after Mr. Gorman documented this, they decided to ignore it. For the scientists in the crowd, I want you to pay careful attention to this. Heavy deposition of particulates is documented in the residential area of Mount Herman Heights as a direct result of incomplete combustion of materials from Caldwell Systems. Now remember, this facility was allowed to run for 10 years by the state without any anti-pollution devices, despite too numerous to count complaints by local residents. In conjunction with Mr. Gorman, a suggestion was made. Why don't you all go ahead and evaluate the composition of these particulate matters? The state didn't want to do it, so we raised money to do it. And the Caldwell Concerned Citizens Group raised a lot of money to send these off to an EPA-attested lab, and lo and behold, what did they find? The composition of these particulates is analyzed by an EPA-attested lab and shows significant concentrations of heavy metals, such as cadmium, chromium, and lead, as well as TCDD, tetrachlorodibenzoedioxin, nasty stuff, as well as contaminants in the furan family. Impressively, these contaminants are found in respirable-sized particles and represent highly toxic exposures. Despite this, state officials continue to ignore the situation. At this point in time, I would like to hand the baton off to Mr. Gorman and say that Mr. Gorman is one heck of a person. He has laid his job and his career on the line for Caldwell County, for the people of North Carolina. He is the only honest person that I've encountered in the state bureaucracy in the last 4 years. He is a good person. He is your friend, and he's my friend.
Thank you, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Roy T. Gorman. I'm a professional scientist. I am here representing you, not the state of North Carolina, not the Division of Environmental Management or the Air Quality Section. I'm here of my own free volition, my own free will, and I'm here on my own. So when I say scientific, somewhere in the early 80s, I made my first trip to Caldwell County, to Caldwell Systems. At that time, I found injury to vegetation. Now, a lot of you might say, well, wait a minute, what is injury to vegetation? I'm classified as an ecotoxicologist. It's a great big name for somebody that can go out and take a look at a plant and say, this environment is sick, or this environment is healthy. I found damage to vegetation a half a mile from the facility. Now, I was told by my supervisors and people up in the organization that the damage to vegetation